It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 9 of The Walking Dead. In this video we're going to be talking about Negan and specifically his arc in Season 9 Episode 9, and also we're going to talk about some Easter eggs that we had in 909 related to Negan, and in general we're going to talk about Negan's future and where it's heading. Let's talk about Negan's future. So of course, after we saw what happened in Season 9, Episode 9, we know that Negan's story is pretty much open-ended. They could do pretty much anything they want with Negan. At this point, Negan got a remixed version of his comic story arc. His story is still open. They could do anything they want with Negan's story. It was a remixed version of his comic story. Instead of him walking into the sunset, he basically came to the realization that there's nothing out there for him and made the decision to go back to his jail cell. Or at least that's what he told Judith. We don't know if he's going to follow up with that or, what's going to happen. We didn't see him go back to his cell. So his story is pretty much open-ended. We could see anything with Negan. He could escape again in the next episode. You know what I mean? He could not even return to his jail cell. So we just don't know what's going to happen to him. But at this point, I would say if we are to believe what they're telling us, Negan is going back to his jail cell, and in a way he's walking into the sunset just like his comic story, but it's different because he's still in the story. In terms of what we're going to see with Negan and Negan's future, they could do anything, like I said. They could have Negan escape again and come back into the story that way. They could have him not even go back to his jail cell, or they could have potentially a scenario where he is needed for something and he is brought out voluntarily by maybe Michonne, maybe Daryl. So that's another scenario in which it could go, but we just don't have any source material to go by. So before we actually get into this, I do want to put out a comic book spoiler warning. So if you are not a comic reader and if you don't know about the comic material, then you might not want to watch the rest of the video because it will spoil things for you. Not just for Negan, but just the comic storyline in general. Now, I would say if you've read the issue up to the Whisperers War from the comic book, you should be fine. But if you haven't got there, then you might not want to watch this video yet because it will spoil things for you. So with that said, let's jump right into it. So at one point in 909, we have a scene where Negan is looking around, looking for supplies. He finds this walker, fights off the walker, but then he sees this sack that has some food inside. He takes the sack, he dumps the food out, and he walks away. Now, what's very interesting is that they focused on that. There had to be a reason, and obviously I think it's an Easter egg for what's to come. If you pay attention to the sack, it has some blood on it, and, it looks like it was there for a purpose. You know what I mean? In the comic book, if you remember, obviously you remember if you're a comic reader, Negan, after spending time with the Whisperers and Alpha specifically, he decapitates Alpha's head, puts the head in a sack, just like the one we saw in 909, and brings it back to Alexandria as a way to show Rick that, they could trust him because he went and single-handedly killed the leader of the new threat, the Whisperers. So I think this is a solid Easter egg for that. I'm not saying that they're gonna do that necessarily. They might not do that. And as far as we know, Negan is not gonna have the same story arc from the comic book. But if they do that, then this was a direct Easter egg for that. Even if Negan doesn't do it, it's still an Easter egg because someone's gonna do it. Or I hope someone does that. But that's the first Easter egg, which I thought was absolutely cool. The next Easter egg is this one of also Negan. He goes out, he's drinking some water from the river, and he gets sick. He throws up, and he's just kneeling down in the middle of this open area, in the middle of the woods. Now pay attention. This is the exact same site as the clearing from 701 or 616, however you want to look at it, where Negan beat Abe and Glenn to death. So that's very interesting. A great Easter egg. I could be wrong about this, but I think it makes the most sense for those two to be related somehow, because why would they have that scene in there? It just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Not only is it the same place, but if you pay attention, it's the same soundtrack theme in the background. So the soundtrack that we have in this scene where Negan is kneeling down and throwing up, parts of it match the exact soundtrack that we had when Negan showed up and beat Glenn and Abe to death. I think it was the soundtrack from 616, not necessarily from 701. The other thing that's very interesting is to think about, why was Negan throwing up? Was he throwing up because of the water, or was he remembering the events of 701? You know, him beating Glenn and Abe to death. So that's another very, very interesting Easter egg that I think some people might have missed. But I think this is an absolutely cool Easter egg, not only as an Easter egg, but also it opens up so much more in terms of what Negan is all about now, where his mindset is at, and what he wants to do in the future and what he wants to be as a survivor. So I thought that was pretty great and I absolutely loved it. Next up, it's just kind of a general thing, but if we look at what Negan is wearing when he's trying to get out of Alexandria, it matches Rick's shirt in season 9. It's not the exact same one, obviously, but it matches that shirt. I absolutely love that. Not only that, but just the style alone. Negan's hairstyle versus Rick's hairstyle. Negan's short gray beard versus Rick's short gray beard. So there's a lot of kind of similarities between them. And it's like Negan was cosplaying as Rick in this episode, which was pretty cool to see. Aside from that, what adds to that is that Negan has a pocket watch around his neck. Now, obviously, that's Judith's pocket watch, but who do we know has a pocket watch? It was Glenn and Maggie. That was a big part of their relationship. We know Herschel gave Glenn that watch when Maggie and Glenn were together. So it kind of goes full circle if you think about it, because Negan has this pocket watch, Glenn had a pocket watch, Negan beat Glenn to death. So it's kind of cool how everything kind of came around in that sense. So that was also another Easter egg that I absolutely loved that they had in there. And as the last Easter egg, which is not a big Easter egg, it's a small Easter egg, but it's a great one. But when we have Negan trying to find a leather jacket, he's in this store, he gets attacked by wild dogs. Now, I immediately thought of Negan's story in 901. Negan was telling Judith the story about bringing in stray dogs when he was a kid. How the stray dog killed the other dogs that they had. I think that this was a direct Easter egg to that. Not that it adds anything to the story, but it was just a way to bring things full circle and to connect what Negan told us in 901 to what he's experiencing now. So I thought that was great, and it was another thing that added a bit more to this episode that I absolutely enjoyed. But that's basically all of the Easter eggs that I wanted to go over. Thank you for watching. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads. And while you're at it, check out my gaming channel, Jedi Age Gaming.